Hi, fellow tea lovers. Settle in, because we've got a story. I'm Nell.
And I'm Rose, and today we're bringing you the tea.
Across eras.
Hello.
Howdy. January has been the longest January of all.
This month's really, it's turning into the longest year ever.
I know.
Though we truck along. And
as we do.
We get to sit and tell each other stories no matter what is storming outside, either metaphorically or realistically.
Want to know my realistic storm?
Absolutely.
So school started last week. I'm in my last semester of my master's program.
Ooh, graduation's on the horizon.
It is, finally, right? So school started last week, and I have 2 asynchronous classes, which means they're just online and there's no actual set class time.
Mm-hmm.
I've had ones where you are told all the assignments up front and you just get them in early, or, you can do them all early.
I do kind of like those self-timelining things.
Sometimes I do. I had one I really liked. I mean, I can't say I learned a single thing, but, ask me what I've learned in my whole program. The answer is Excel.
You learned how to concentrate on one thing for an entire semester at a time, which actually is a very desirable skill and most of what you learn in college.
Well, the story I'm about to tell you might make you change your mind. If anyone can do it, it'd be me, right? So, I have 2 asynchronous classes this semester. One is with a professor I've had before. He's actually the one who taught us how to use Excel and made it so wonderful. He's a pretty tough teacher, though.
Important skills.
Yeah, and I had him in an actual class I had to attend, but he always recorded his classes, thank goodness, because it was always over my head.
Mm-hmm.
By the time the second hour hit, I didn't know what was happening.
I like that that's becoming more ubiquitous. It used to be kind of like a weird thing, to want to record the lecture, and now it's just automatic.
Right, and these are online classes anyways, so please record them.
Please.
So anyways, I have him, and then I have a professor I had last semester. I mean, I didn't even need to open that class for at least a month. He's so all over the place, but I enjoy him. And then I have one Saturday class. Ugh. So it's fine. It's fine. And it's a Saturday online class. When I'm in that class, I open up the website thing my school uses, and I realize I've already missed an assignment in one of my professor, who I said is pretty hardcore, in his class. Mm. And then in this class I'm in on Saturday, we could vote between presenting 2 individual case studies or 4 group case studies.
There's a really obvious choice there.
Right. Do you want to do 2 or 4? I want to do 2, and I also don't want to meet with anyone outside of class ever. And we're doing group work.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
I was like, oh, okay, if you guys all voted for this, my availability is, and I'm not lying, maybe Monday at 6 a.m. when I get home from the gym for 1 hour, depending on how I feel.
You picked this.
I'm not thrilled, but the point is, I've already missed one assignment. I'm like, what am I doing?
Being a normal student, we have all been there.
And somehow I still managed to have a 4.0.
Damn right. Yeah. And fist bumping since you can't see it.
That's how it's been.
Well, what I want to talk to you about today is a rebel for the ages that I just learned about. Fun, awesome coincidence. So on any given day, and you can confirm this, if you walked into our house and we're just puttering around, there's probably Forged in Fire on in the background.
Correct.
My partner's super into it. He was actually very much a fan of Doug Marcaida beforehand, and then was very happy for him to have the show. Then we got into the show, and then everyone around us was also into it. It was just really kind of a very fun community moment.
I love that show.
Yeah, no, it's excellent background noise, and it's honestly just a very fun show, and they need to stop screwing with where it's streaming, because we've been following it. It's getting rough, man. But so we're watching reruns of Forged in Fire, and we walk in and out, just doing our thing. And they were doing a episode that I actually don't remember which season this is. It's been out for quite a while, but I hadn't seen it before, where they were doing giant constructions. Yeah. So they start out with the railroad tie knives and everything like that.
That cracked me up.
Yeah, you have to spend half of your time cutting out a railroad tie.
Yes.
If you're unfamiliar with the show, first of all, you should definitely treat yourself. But
yeah, it's really good.
What they do in the final round is they pick a historic weapon that they have to recreate, And a lot of times you can see when the judges, it's like one of their personal favorites. It's fun. So the historic weapon that they chose for this was the Grutte Pier sword.
Grutte Pier.
I had no reference. They'll always do like a little blurb about why the thing is important. The Grutte Pier sword is actually a thing that still exists, probably, and with artifacts, it's a little bit difficult. But it's there is a sword that is reputed to be that of Grutte Pier, who we will explain in a moment, in the Fries Museum in Leeuwarden, which is the Netherlands.
Oh, cool.
I will take this moment to say that I have tried quite hard to get my pronunciations right. But I will acknowledge my lack of talent and knowledge in Dutch and Frieslander and the rest of the name place origins that are about to come up here. And I just want to apologize. I'm in no way mocking anyone's language. And I am trying.
And if you,
That being said,
we do our best.
There are some phonetic coincidences that I find adorable that I will continue to find adorable. You'll see what I'm talking about here.
My thing is, I always lean towards, no matter what it is, I'm like, lean towards a Spanish pronunciation.
Well, it's just because we're around it so much.
Exactly.
It's just, what you're around sneaks in. It's the same thing with Latin scholars from England, remember?
Yes.
So, they're talking about the Grutte Pier sword. This thing is 7 feet long, and it is attached to the legend of a man that is so interesting. We started going down this little research rabbit hole immediately, because they never said how tall he was.
They didn't. They just were like, here's a 7-foot sword that homeboy could wield with a hand.
Exactly. Could decapitate 2 guys at once with it. We're just like, well, how tall is that guy? Because I'm imagining Andre the Giant.
Exactly.
And that seems to apparently not be that far off. So we're trying to look up how tall is Grutte Pier, and found this incredible story of a guy that was basically the Dread Pirate Roberts and John Wick.
Yes. When I went to look him up, his occupation was farmer, pirate.
That is living your best life, and he was good at both. So Grutte Pier is the colloquial nickname for a guy named Pier Gerlofsdonia. Mm-hmm. He was from Kimsverd in Frisia. And Frisia is kind of northern Netherlands. It is at the tip top of the bay that Amsterdam is at the bottom of. Mm-hmm. Friesland has its own remarkable history. So Frisia, the inlet that Amsterdam is kind of tucked into, if you go up to the very top of that, so within the little island kind of protective structure, that's Friesland.
Yeah.
And so Friesland was heavily occupied during megalithic, prehistoric eras. It's a very desirable location. You have coastal resources,
yes,
but it's also a little bit protected.
Yeah.
You also have very open, flat farming land that is equally desirable for cattle, for agriculture. This is the beginnings of agriculture. Mm-hmm. So it's a great place to live for a very long time. Unfortunately, sea level changes affect populations. Correct. And until something like 600 AD, it was flooded. Rough estimate years, sorry. It completely flooded because of sea level changes. Oh, wow. And so it was uninhabitable. And so that created a really interesting, differentiation between Friesland and a lot of Europe. So when it did become habitable again during the migration period, which is, Viking conquest, people are leaving the more interior northern European countries and kind of spreading out into these areas. And so Friesland is both old and new. Yes, and also Friesland, even though it sounds like freeze, the water's freezing, that's not at all it. That was one of my first thoughts. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, it's at the top of the Netherlands. Right, it seems like it would, that would absolutely, it's top of Europe. That definitely seems like it would be freezing, but it smelled more like fries. Yeah. And so now it just feels delicious. Yummy. Friesland, it's very good farming country. Again, it has the same advantages that it had. Mm-hmm. But now it is in the middle of a whole bunch of other settled lands that also see how desirable it is, and it's not that defensible. It's flat land. No. It's flat land and open sea. It's not that defensible. It never evolves the same aristocratic structures that the rest of feudal Europe does. Okay. It actually has a name. It's called the Friesland Freedom. Oh. And they were basically just practicality lawmakers for the longest time. Like the guy in the area that owns the big house, that owns most of the land, we're going to ask him who owns the pig.
Yeah.
Basically, that's very knocked down. But then, you know, of course, those structures grow as holdings grow. And, you know, the guy with the big house now has the big castle and he owns even more land and he thinks that he should own the land over there. And, of course, you get warring factions. This is humanity. Right?
So lame.
Can't ever leave a good thing alone. Ever. So, 14th century, infighting between these richer than the others in the area. I say barons because that's kind of like a placeholder word for me for like lower landholder nobility.
Yeah.
It's not accurate in this sense that they would use that word, but
right. It's not like a titled baron under laws.
It's more of an adjective baron. Yeah. So these factions, their conflicts are getting to the Civil War level, and so it kind of boils down to two factions. The Fete Keeper and the Scavenger factions, and it is all out civil war. Enter Piers Gerlof's Donia, born in Friesland in 1480 in Kimsverd. So this is the area that is, one of the areas is being hotly contested by these factions. Now the guy that's actually in charge of the entire area, technically, is the Duke of Saxony. Practically speaking, he doesn't have any power on the ground, so the feudal structure doesn't hold. During these factional conflicts, Piers Gerlof, the giant farmer man, is born and is living his best life in good old farmland Frisia. He marries a lovely lady. What's cool is he moves to her estate. Oh. All the lands that later come into question are actually his wife's lands, and nice. It's just totally not even a thing. It's not an issue. I love it.
When does he get the nickname Groot? And it's Grut, not like I am Groot. But and is that, what does that mean?
So Grutte Pier means big Pierre or big lad.
Okay.
Pierre here is spelled Pier.
For his name.
Yeah, which is more of a Dutch spelling. It's, you know, occupies the same space as the French Pierre, you know.
Okay.
It's also kind of like a Tom, Dick, and Harry. So it's the same thing as calling a guy, you know, oh, big boy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's just like, and that's, as far as I could tell, just everybody called him that. You meet the 7-foot man, he's big boy.
I would think yes.
Yeah, so it's a natural nickname, I think. He was legendary as a farmer. He supposedly could pull his own plow, didn't need an ox. Reputedly could lift a horse over his head.
Wow.
We looked up Frisian horses, and that's even more impressive because of how sturdy those things are. And
yes.
Can I just say as a side note, they have fabulous hair.
They're so shiny. They're like, you know, the one that Gandalf had?
Yes.
The white shiny horse? These are
like
the black shiny horses.
It's so pretty.
Oh, so pretty.
Yeah. So Pierre marries a lady named Rinsa Sirstema.
Okay.
They had 2 kids, a son named Gerlof and a daughter named Wobble.
Oh.
Which I think is just the most beautiful. I think it's likely the W is probably going to be a V sound. So Wobble, which, I mean...
Vobel. I don't even know.
Yeah, no, this is one of those moments where I know I'm not pronouncing it right, and I it's so cute.
Yeah.
I would call a little girl Wobble.
Yeah.
So he is living his best Friesland life, and then this civil war is occurring around him. It's not anything that he's involved in. And then the Duke of Saxony says, hey, we need to deal with this factionalism in Friesland. It hires a bunch of mercenaries and sends them north. Now, mercenaries tend to consider pillaging a part of their pay. Yeah. They're chronically underpaid, which is just a dumb idea. Arm a guy, put your name on him, underpay him, and send him to a foreign country. That's always going to go well. Always. The mercenaries that get sent north that are the problem for Grutte Pier are called the Black Band, a Landesknecht regiment in the service of George, the Duke of Saxony. They find this awesome village filled with women and children and pillage the absolute crap out of it, burn everything to the ground, do terrible things to Pierre's wife.
Oh.
And kill her. Sadly, This is a lot of the John Wick connection for me. Like, oh yeah, you pissed guy off in all the ways that you could piss someone off the most viscerally. That's gonna go well for you. No. His entire life is razed to the ground by something that he was not even involved in. So Piers understandably decides to gather his closest friends and neighbors plus his protege Wyrd. Wyrd. Now, it's a little bit disputed whether he was related. Some sources say that he was Pierre's nephew.
Okay. And
some just, he was his best friend protege, but he was his right-hand man.
Okay.
Right-hand man Wyrd. Another name I love.
Yep.
So he gathers up his nearest and dearest and creates the Arumer Zwartehoop, which is one of those cool translations that means several things at once. So I read one that was Black Hope, one that was Black Heap, one that was the Black Mass, not like mass church, but like mass of people. So I do think that that's one of those like more nuanced words that we don't just have a solid translation for, but I think they all fit.
Right.
That's
fun.
If you're chasing down your wife's killers, sometimes you're a Black Horde, sometimes you're a Black Heap, and sometimes you're a Black Hope. Either way,
indeed,
you're going to get those guys. So he creates this band of pirates, mostly active against the Hollanders, but also against the Burgundians that also laid claim to the area.
Okay.
Basically, they were just like, screw everybody but the Frieslanders, and just commence to wreak havoc on any of these people that they can find. There was a town that he hated.
Not a Friesland town?
Not a Friesland town. That was across the Zuiderzee. So the Zuiderzee is the name of the body of water that is kind of surrounded by those islands up on the up there. So like at the bottom of it is Amsterdam, at the top is Friesland.
Okay.
It means Southern Sea, which means that the Frieslanders probably named it because it was below them.
Yeah.
So this Zuiderzee.
Yeah, if I was in Amsterdam, I wouldn't name it the Southern Sea.
It's the Southern Sea, and you look up. So across the Zuiderzee, there was a settlement, Medemblik, that apparently he kept kidnapping rival generals and just dumping them there. He's like, I hate this town and I hate you. You two deserve each other. Meh.
Oh, wow.
Which I love. And eventually he came back to Medemblik and just obliterated it. Just like, you know what? Actually, I hated all of you guys anyway. Just go. He was renowned for ransoming back nobles, which that's... I was watching something the other day that medieval warfare was really just expensive tag for noblemen. Because you're going to get much more benefit out of kidnapping the king of wherever you're fighting and taking him home and probably showing him a good time. But if his country wants him back, they're going to need to hand over most of their GDP.
Right.
You're going to get so much more out of that than whipping his ass on the battlefield.
Oh, 100%.
So, tag, I got him. Ha!
And you get to have like a big dinner party.
Yeah.
You don't throw the king of some other country in the dungeon.
No, absolutely not. No, they're not allowed to leave, but they're living pretty well and definitely better than the rest of the peasantry.
Yep.
He was a success on land and sea. Like,
okay.
This is a coastal area, so they were all veteran sailors and managed to kick ass once again, over and over again. Every ship they found, basically, they preyed on Dutch ships, they preyed on English ships.
So anyone coming near Friesland was fair game?
Exactly.
Okay.
It was just basically like, you all, with all of your politics and your drama, can just screw off. You couldn't just let us sit here and farm. We couldn't do it now if we tried. There's no home for us to go back to. We're not backing down.
Yep. Nothing to lose, I guess.
Exactly. And for the most part, they won. They did. Obviously, they suffered some casualties.
Yeah.
They sent a fleet after them at one point.
They sent a fleet after
Grutte Pier. Yeah,
okay.
after his band. In 1517, the Hollanders hire commander Antonius van den Hout,
Ooh.
Lord of Lerten, apparently titled the Admiral of the Zuiderzee. And he comes in...
You go, sir.
Like a politician. He says, I'm going to rid this beautiful area of the terrible Frieslander threat. Those awful pirates are all going to be tomorrow's news. I've got you people. I will clear out the riffraff and the horridness. And he gets his ass so solidly handed to him. It's basically they ride out with 15 ships and manage to take out a couple from Grutte Pier's fleet and then just get smacked down, and then Grutte Pier takes 11 of their ships. It was like a gift of ships.
Oh, that was nice of them.
And he continues to wreak havoc and hell upon all of those that would dare to disturb his peace.
Let them be.
When they were boarding the ships, he was not interested in gathering, troops from the other side of people who wanted to abandon their original mission and come fight on his side. He was Frieslander only. He was not interested in adding to anything. And so when he would capture a ship, there was a poem that he would make people say in order to prove that they were Frieslanders. So,
oh no.
It has a specific name. It's called a shibboleth.
I thought that term was related to Judaism.
It actually does have
Oh,
Hebrew
okay.
roots.
Oh, okay.
But it's any custom or tradition of phrasing or pronunciation which immediately points to a specific culture.
Okay.
So a shibboleth is like, say milk.
Milk.
Say milk.
Milk.
How about bag?
Bag.
Big.
Bag.
That's a shibboleth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were captured by one of Grutte Pierre's ships, they would stand you up on the deck and you would have to say butter, bread, and green cheese. If you can't say that, you're not a real Frisian.
Wow.
And if you didn't say milk, like milk is said down the road from the Frieslanders, you were immediately off the ship and they were moving on.
So we live, in New Mexico. We're a border state. And my algorithm is always skewed towards things. Like in podcasts, I get a lot of commercials in Spanish. And I don't understand a lot of Spanish, you know? But right now, in this current time of unknown and confusion and chaos, I've seen some really funny videos. And two I saw back to back. It was the same skit, two different people doing it, is when ICE comes to your door and they're like, we need to ask you some questions to prove you're American. Like, who's the greatest female singer? Taylor Swift. And the final question, though, is, can you pronounce Walmart?
Oh.
And if you don't know what I mean, just go look up those videos. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, so the Frieslander version of Want a Coke is butter, bread, and green cheese. If you can't say that, you're not a real Fries.
That's fantastic. So how long did the fighting last? Like, how long were they rebelling?
So the band itself, the Rumors Vartahub, it was about, like, at least under Pierre Gerloff's was about 5 years.
Okay.
And mostly successful, took a whole castle. But eventually the man ages and ends up taking the Dread Pirate Roberts route, gifting the band to his best buddy Weird, and retiring to a monastery in the town of Sneak.
He died at, like, 40.
Aww. The life of a soldier, and honestly, probably the life of a man that large. I mean, heart problems abound.
But out there doing the most.
Right. He's definitely putting himself in the way of mortality factors. So
that makes sense.
So he lived a short life, but I really like. It was split. The end of his story was very, I think, dependent on how the author felt about him. Because a lot of people are like, oh, he snuck off in sadness and despair and never got to him. I do think of it more like the Arthurian legend, because what's funny to me about Arthurian legend is he lost. That's not what anybody gets out of the story. The last grand battle that Arthur dies in, it is the Saxons winning. It's not, but it still reads as one of our most heroic stories. Like the thing that directly follows the supposed Arthurian period is Anglo-Saxon. That's established. The Saxons won, but it's still a hero story.
I visited maybe like 2006, so maybe 20 years ago. No, I was in San Antonio and we went to the Alamo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
number one, we lost. Number two, it's shockingly small.
Yeah. The monuments of history look so huge in our heads. And then when you actually see the thing, sometimes it is, but many times not.
I remember walking around not really knowing very much at all about the Alamo, the event. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, this is why roadside markers are important. I'm just going to say, read your plaques. They are actually fun.
They are fun, especially, guys, if you're ever traveling in another country, read their plaques. In England, they all said something really nice, like, please mind that you don't step on the flora and fauna. And in China, they were like, take care and, like, pay attention to people around you.
Somebody's worked really hard to make that interesting for you, for one. This isn't a guilt trip thing, but yeah, no, it's fun.
Yeah, my dad used to live in Grand Junction, Colorado. You've lived there too. Mm-hmm. Before I knew you, though. Yes. And so the drive up there involves going over the $1 Million Highway. The highway with the sheer cliffs down the side. Oh. The one that went up out of Durango. Yes.
Oh, man. I didn't take that route often, but good Lord, I thought I was going to die every time.
It's a very scary route, but there's a lot of beautiful, terrifying scenic lookout spots, and they have lots of informative plaques. One time, my mom's friend drove us up there, and it was like me, my mom, my kid, my sister, my mom's friend who was driving the RV, and then I think one of her kids, and then maybe my brother and my brother's friend. And we had the best time in the back of the RV. And it was, there was a wildfire going on. We could see it from through the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
But later we found out, like, the brakes on the RV were starting to burn because you can't go over I mean, you can, but you shouldn't go over the $1 million highway in an RV.
Honestly, when you said RV, I was like, this is a different story. Whew. Yeah.
When I was looking this guy up, sorry, back to the subject.
No, you're not.
I saw a picture of someone wearing his helmet.
Yes, so the Friesland Museum has his supposed helmet and sword, and
the guy in the picture with the helmet,
it's amazing.
Like, it came down under his eyes.
This guy was a massive, massive person in every respect, and he's still considered a hero by the Frieslanders. I like to think of him as having taken the Dread Pirate Roberts route. He is living like a king in Patagonia.
Nice.
Yes, he died really early, but he had accomplished
he did a lot
more than you could ever imagine in that age, and had at least sent his children out into the world with the message that they mattered.
Yeah.
That they weren't just empty space to be invaded.
Yeah.
And I think that
nice.
Is the best legacy he possibly could have gotten.
I can't stop thinking about, like, the sword and the helmet's weight, and then I'm putting that on top of, like, wielding it one-handed on a boat.
Right, pirating with a 7-foot sword. I was never more impressed than when I saw Doug Marcaida picking that sucker up for the final testing and taking out the 2 pigs at the same time.
Yes. Oh, okay. Okay. So I guess I should have said this in the beginning. Forged in Fire is about making metal items in a forge,
right?
Which has fire.
It highlights, excuse me. It
no,
highlights
okay.
knife making and weapon making in a more artistic way than it ever really got.
Yeah, it's cool.
Credit for, I think, before it had existed. I think it's a really awesome project in itself. Of course, it's a TV show. They make it for money.
Like in the final round, when they're usually making that historic object, they test all the things they make at various points. But in the final round, they really test it. Like sometimes they're like chopping through like a 5-gallon ice block.
And sometimes they're chopping through a wild boar.
Yeah, that one grosses me out a little.
I do love, though, that they have actually partnered with a wolf sanctuary.
Yeah.
And that's where all of the meat goes, so it isn't a waste.
Yeah. They do have these like gel dummies. They're ballistics dummies, right?
Yeah.
Those are so cool. I mean, I love when Doug like slashes the belly open and then was like, perfect. Oh, the fake guts came out.
I heard this story. Apparently he kept a bunch of the heads in the first few seasons, and then everybody learned that ballistics jelly will actually rot. Not dissimilarly to flesh. So that
I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Whoa.
Apparently he didn't either, poor guy.
You know, one of my coworkers, her dad was on Forged in Fire.
That's amazing.
I know, and she's such a turkey. She's like, he lost. I'm like, oh,
he didn't lose.
He came in second. Yeah, it was so cool. I really like it.
Well, thank you guys for listening.
Thanks, guys. I hope you listen, and leave us a review. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.